All right. Well, let's keep things going. Oh, the timer just says it's time for our first debate topic of the day. Looks like it just missed that little recap on Seattle, but we come down to our first question. Now it's we can go open discussion. How far can Seattle go this postseason? That's been the question posted. So yeah, I don't know who wants to get started. I can just keep going from the recap I had just a minute ago. But I mean, yeah, when you're talking about the Seahawks defense, I don't know. I mean, how far can they go? That's really up to one guy, right? It's up to Russell. I mean, if Russell Wilson plays mistake-free football, if he plays mistake-free football, and if he can actually go toe to toe with any kind of scoring every single game when it matters in the playoffs, sure, they can go all the way.
So, I think in the NFC, the Seahawks are among the top four teams, and there's seven teams that are going to make the playoffs, and five of them have offenses that can truly pace Seattle. Arizona, Green Bay, New Orleans, and Tampa can all pace Seattle offensively. And so now the question comes down to is like whose defense can get the stop at the end of the game, or whose defense can get the stops early in the game to give their team a lead. And I think Seattle has the worst defense out of the four. I think they should go out and sign Tack McKinley actually now that he's a free agent. But I don't see him getting past the second round. I think VJ, though, you said one thing when you're recapping the game that could change their fortune in that sense, which is I know it's tempting to throw the ball downfield when you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett sprinting down the field. But when Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde come back, they got to play that old school run the ball down your throat kind of
I mean,
football
that's
because
exactly what I was saying. I
it,
think the Seahawks are probably the team that could benefit the most from playing time of
yeah,
possession football because Russ I guess can't help himself at scoring at what a high pace that he is, but at the same time, I mean they gotta not allow offenses to have all the time in the world to come down and score on them, which they're gonna do inevitably, right? So
and
like,
it reminds me a lot of the Cowboys from I want to say I think it was Dak's rookie year, where Dak and Zeke just held the ball for so much time on offense that even though the defense was not very good or not playing well, they weren't giving up a lot of points per game because one, they knew teams had to throw, and because they knew what was happening and they were not on the field as much, they were always well rested and they were able to fly around a bit more and let the Cowboys, win 13 games in Dak's rookie year. I think the Seahawks got to shift to that kind of play style because they're not the Chiefs. The Chiefs have a defense that will let them come back into games when they get behind. Seattle can score in spurts and they can put up 30 points, but if their defense is on the field that often, they're going to be chasing leads every single game the rest of the way. And I think in the playoffs, when you're going against the Bucks front seven, the Saints front seven, which has come alive in the past 2 to 3 weeks, the Cardinals are in the same situation I think with as the Seahawks, and then the Packers who also have a pretty solid front seven. I Seattle really needs to evaluate how they're going to try and hide the issues on their defense, and I think Jamal Adams needs to get healthy too. But right as it stands right now, I don't see this team getting to the conference championship.
I don't even know if this team is gonna win the division.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, you look at their next two games, and it's huge because they got the Rams in Week 10. All right, and
Mhm.
I mean, say what you will about the Rams, but they got an offense, right? And we've seen Jared Goff throw for several hundred yards against. You can pick apart a bad defense.
Yeah, every team has used the Seattle, whether they won or lost the game. Every team has used the Seattle defense as a get right game.
Right. And so, I think I mean, okay, let's say Seattle holds on against the Rams, but then you're looking at Seahawks Cardinals Week 11. That's going to be for the division because if the Cardinals take the Week 11 game, they would have swept Seattle this season.
Yeah,
And then but here's where Seattle really lucks out because they get to play the Eagles, the Giants, the Jets, and the Washington football teams for a 4 game stretch. So
right.
I mean,
Well, here's the thing though: is Arizona's only one game back, so
that's what I'm
theoretically,
saying. Like by
all
week
Arizona needs.
11, Cardinals could potentially take the division from them. But what happens
Exactly.
after that point, I'm not
The
too sure.
Rams will a loss to the Rams just icing on top at that point, but it'll be interesting for sure. How
And yeah, yeah, go ahead.
no, it'll just be. I'm just saying it'll be interesting to see how it shakes up. But regardless, I think though with the winning the division is not as important this year unless you're in the NFC East, just because of the lack of crowds.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
I
I
don't I
agree, but
don't
I mean, but Seattle's still playing for the 1 seed.
That's true. I mean, you're
You know
absolutely
what
right.
I'm
It's a
saying? They're still
tough
playing for the 1 seed. And you know what? I was taking a look at the Arizona Cardinals schedule while we were having this discussion, and you know what I actually think this whole divisional race is going to come down to? I think it's going to come down to the Cardinals Bills game in Week 10 because the Cardinals have to win that game to make. I
Yeah,
mean, they have to win that game because you know in the
especially because
late
they
stretch the
lost to
Cardinals have just
Miami.
yeah yeah
The Cardinals lost to Miami, who Seattle beats. Now to even it out, they got to beat the Bills.
they got to beat
And
the Bills.
one of
I
those,
mean, and then we'll see what happens with the Seahawks Cardinals game, and then the Cardinals got New England, they got the Giants, they got the Eagles, they got the Niners in that late game stretch too. So, I mean, you're right. It's gonna be interesting to see. But I mean, at this point, the
so,
Cardinals are
so
definitely the more complete team.
here's the follow up question. I think this ties into the discussion we're gonna have about the Dolphins Cardinals game, but I think it's more apt here. Who do you think gets further in a situation where the Cardinals and Seahawks both make it? Would you trust the Cardinals to get further in the playoffs this year than Seattle?
Well, here's what I would say. That's a really good question. I think. I mean, I really think it just comes down to who wins the well. Okay, well, would the
See, if
winner of that division
If
would
Chandler
the
Jones is
winner of
on the
that
field,
division
I'd
get
say
the one
Cardinals
seed?
no question.
Would the winner of that division get the 1 seed?
Yeah, I would think
Or is
so.
it going to be the Saints? No, it could be the Saints. I mean, the Saints are
I,
rolling. I mean, we'll get to that in a bit, but like, there's no guarantee that the winner of that division gets the 1 seed. And I think in the event that neither of the two teams, neither Seattle nor Arizona, gets the 1 seed, I see Arizona going further than Seattle on paper. I think the only chance that Seattle has to make it further than Arizona in the playoffs is if Seattle locks the 1 seed. On paper, that is, on paper, because I think Arizona's a more
Yeah.
complete team. Like Russ can ball out, and obviously anything can happen in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I mean that's just my takeaway. You know, because I think it's important as hell for Seattle to get that to lock that way. I mean, because anything can happen. You know, but I think Arizona is competitive enough to defensively and offensively to be able to put up and make it out of that wild card
One of
weekend.
those
So
teams has to sign Tack McKinley, and I think whoever does that is going to go further. And I mean, right now, I'm going to lean Cardinals. VJ, you know this. The Cardinals are my preseason pick to get out of the NFC.
yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, and
yeah,
it's you were right, man. You hit. They're playing good football. They're playing damn good football. So
I really said Chandler Jones is hurt because seasons like this where you're rolling are hard to come by in the NFL, and I
yeah,
really think
yeah.
Chandler Jones being on the field would have made all the difference in the world. But between the two of them, I trust the Cardinals to come out of there. I think Kyler has to clean up a bit in terms of turnovers, but I trust them come postseason time to run the ball, control the clock, and they have Christian Kirk and DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald out there running at receiver. So
Yeah,
would
and healthy Kenyon Drake maybe. Well, I mean, we don't know what kind of impact he's gonna have, but
Mhm.
he might, you know. So, anyone have any last thoughts before we move on into the week
yeah.
9 game recaps? Yeah,
I don't trust the Seahawks defense like one bit. I mean, I don't know what's up with Jamal Adams. He's probably still hurt. He just doesn't look the same as he did on the Jets last year. Quentin Dunbar was dealing with a chronic knee injury, and he was still playing and just getting burned over and over in that game. And if they can't figure out how to honestly just like not, I mean, I was talking about this with a friend earlier. Seattle's scheme right now is pretty simple. I mean, they run their cover three zone, like whatever, right? They've been running it for ages. And the thing is that if Ken Norton Jr., Pete Carroll, whoever is the, quote unquote leader of that like defense and like the defensive mind behind it, if they don't like fix that, they're literally not going to get anywhere because any team can just run time of possession, pick apart their defense, and then, force Russell Wilson to just like continue to play mistake-free football, as Vijay said. I just do not think that that's possible. The old saying is that defense wins championships, and the Seahawks simply just don't have a defense. Like any great team that they play is just going to be able to keep putting up points unless they actually make a fix. And yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a fix is coming anytime soon, especially with like the way that, you know, a lot of people are calling on Ken Norton to be fired. I don't really know if that's the right move mid-season, but Carroll doesn't really seem to care that much. Um, Russ wants to cook, he can cook, but like if he, commits turnovers, then your game plan just goes down the drain because your defense isn't capable of stopping anyone. So yeah, I don't really think the Seahawks are going to make it that far because Cardinals have, their defense is like up and down, but they have shown that they can lock in when they need to. I think Vance Joseph can creatively blitz like he did against Seattle when they played and stuff like that. So Yeah, I just want to add that I have full confidence in the Cardinals over the Seahawks if the defense continues to play the way they did.
All right, these next two divisional games are definitely going to decide the division against the Rams and the Cardinals. Like these are both huge, and we both know that if the Cardinals win, then they get that that tiebreaker on at Seattle, and that's essentially game over. And we've never even seen a Pete Carroll Seattle team with no defense as bad as this. And yeah, sure. Like yesterday, we can talk about how Seattle's RB1 was DJ Dallas, but and like even whenever Chris Carson and or Carlos Hyde come back, like I'm sure that'll be an improvement and like that'll get the ball rolling for what Seattle wants their offense to be. But as you guys have said, like even if they can and pull out a one divisional a win in the next 2 weeks, either against the Rams or the Cardinals, I don't see them pulling two, and I think that's gonna keep them from winning the division, and then Arizona will take it in the end.
All right, well, I don't want to let this run too late, but I will end it on yeah, man, let Russ cook. Just gotta hope he doesn't burn his food, you know?